Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We have a lot to get to, and back by popular demand, I've had people reach out to that number on the bottom of the screen, virtual wave, speaking of which, asking to have Hornell Mayor John Buckley back on the program. So he'll be joining us here in just a little bit. We'll find out how things are going in Hornell, as he had just finished recently his State of the City address, so we'll talk to him about that. First, from a viewer after the program yesterday, or maybe towards the end, one thing Trump could use in his favor is the extremely short attention span of voters as a result of the media brainwashing. The attention span is remarkable, isn't it? The scandal of today will be forgotten by Monday. But President Trump needs to be more Reagan-esque and keep his slamming comments inside and try to act more dignified and less New York abrupt. He needs to speak to the American voters like he's talking to a banker about a loan. And I know some people watching are going to say, well, we've wanted that for a long time, or that's been a suggestion for a long time. But I think there's a point because, and who was it this morning who had it? I know it was the New York Post, and it was actually the editorial board. And they said, will Donald miss the opportunity to win big by getting out of his own way? And the suggestion in this article is that Biden is doing so poorly with potential voters, but also with his policies, both foreign and domestic, that it's really ripe for the taking. But will Trump continue with speeches like he gave after the New Hampshire win? They turn off people that should naturally be attracted to him. And as their suggestion is, the MAGA base is exactly that, the base. You build from the base. These voters, not all moms or even all women, by the way, but that's what the media continue to tell us, suburban women, matter. An 11-point victory in a New Hampshire primary is no great shakes for a guy who's effectively an incumbent, making his boasts of historic victories somewhat empty. I disagree with that. I think that's another bar they set after the fact. But they said Biden's disasters have hit the hardest and disillusioned the most. So can Trump learn at all not to hurt himself and take advantage of this historic opportunity of a disastrous Biden presidency and what Biden has laid before the GOP? His awful victory speech in New Hampshire suggests not. Again, this is from the New York Post editorial board, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Most people have pretty well given up asking Trump to change. Well, there's to the point I was making. But maybe he can, go a little bit more moderate, not politically speaking, to get out of his own way, but more calm and collected. His movement has always been bigger than him. If he can let this election be mostly about Biden, not him, it'll grow even more. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. I do have a couple New York State issues that I hope to get to. I want to spend some time with John Buckley, but I've got to tell you this, because we've talked about the disastrous rollout of legalized cannabis in New York State. Did you see, I mentioned it yesterday, they're supposed to approve at a meeting I guess you could own in your house up to 5 pounds of recreational marijuana that you grew. My question was, when does it start changing the definition of recreational at 5 pounds? But the State Cannabis Control Board abruptly canceled its January meeting late Tuesday, less than 17 hours before it was scheduled to consider proposed homegrown regulations and a slew of retail license applications that have been backlogged due to litigation and the slow rollout of the industry. Now, according to Rosalind Adams, they're blaming really Governor Hochul, saying it came at Hochul's request. Lake House Cannabis CEO Paul Suits sent a 2-page document outlining his frustrations trying to win a dispensary license to the Office of Cannabis Management, remarks he had planned to read aloud at the meeting. The reason I mention him specifically, he's from Cortland. Suits applied in October for a retail license to sell in Cortland. Under the state's criteria, he qualified as a priority applicant, but then they kind of changed the definition of priority applicant, and it got very frustrating. The only thing we don't have right now is the employees, because we don't have a license. So they have the building, they have everything. But the state's communication about how many of the priority licenses it would award and the process for how those licenses would be awarded has shifted in the months since Suits applied, creating confusion for him and hundreds of other applicants. You have to understand how this feels if you were in my shoes, he wrote. So no surprise there. Seems about par for the course. As we take our first break, I have another New York State issue, and I want to get to a couple quick things before we talk with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. So stay with us. As always, you see the number on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to weigh in on all the topics of the day, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Marcus Street in Corning. The question is now being asked right down the road. Is Cornell next? The school's wealthy donors at Cornell are calling for the president's ouster after this rot of anti-Semitism. Wealthy alumni activists, enraged at the leadership of their Ivy League alma mater, have helped push out the presidents of the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard, as we are well aware, and we brought to you for quite a lengthy period of time on this program. Now, a new group of donors are pulling out the same playbook at Cornell University. John Linzeth, a Cornell alumni, donor, and former trustee, asked the school's Board of Trustees to dismiss University President Martha Pollack and Provost Michael Kotlikoff for allegedly stifling open debate and rational argument. Alumni who support the call for the pair's ouster also are upset about diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the school, as well as what they see as growing anti-Semitism on campus. Yes, that DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's actually a piece today that it's hit the FBI by Miranda Devine. DEI hires pushed onto the FBI, are putting the country's safety at risk for the sake of being woke. So this is a term you should be familiar with by now, DEI. But especially on college campuses, you look at the cost of this, the employees that they hire for DEI initiatives. But also, I think the important part, too, as well, is the anti-Semitism that has reared its ugly head on college campuses specifically. We saw it at Cornell. Linzeth, who started this, said Cornell is no longer concerned with discovering and disseminating knowledge, but rather with adhering to DEI groupthink and radicalization. Trustees for the university in upstate New York are scheduled to meet Friday. In Linzeth's letter, he calls for the school to eliminate DEI staffing and programming and adopt principles of free inquiry and open debate. I don't have the number in my head, but they were showing how many students could get free college tuition if you eliminated the DEI staffing and programming at various universities. The push is also supported, just as a side note, by the Cornell Free Speech Alliance, a 2-year-old group formed to support free expression and viewpoint diversity on campus. Some alumni members of the group, who are also wealthy donors, have indicated they would withhold donations if college administrators didn't do a better job of protecting those ideals. Others want to see Pollack removed. So, yeah, that's really what ends up winning at the end of the day. The money not going in, but they have to have quite an effort, as you saw in Harvard. One last thing before we go to break and we talk to Mayor of Hornell, John Buckley. We received this note from Congressman Nick Langworthy yesterday, and I thought it was noteworthy to put on the screen. Here's the quote. Oh, my fault. There we go. Congressman Nick Langworthy announced 2 grants for arts programs in Corning from the National Endowment for the Arts, totaling $35,000. The American Dance Asylum, Incorporated, will receive a grant for $10,000, and Rockwell Museum's Alley Art Project will receive a grant for $25,000, and that's his statement. This investment in the American Dance Asylum, Rockwell Museum's Alley Art Project stands to provide our community with new opportunities. I'm proud to advocate for the arts and cultural initiatives that not only enrich the lives of residents, but also contribute to the economic growth of our region. The creativity and talent found in Corning are deserving of this recognition and support. So thank you to Congressman Nick Langworthy. We have to take a short break because when we come back, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and joining us over Zoom, the mayor of Hornell, John Buckley. John, thanks so much for being back on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Frank. Always great to be here.
Well, I'm glad that we could start the new year and go through some of the priorities, some of the things we should talk about with Hornell. But let's take a step back to last year. We promoted the heck out of the Christmas at the Square event. I'm just wondering how it turned out. I've got to give an update to the viewer.
Oh my gosh, it turned out amazing. We have a beautiful new Union Square Park that was just built and completed this past fall. And, going into the winter, you have a new park. What do you do with
Yeah,
it?
right.
We put on a Christmas concert, right?
Yeah.
So we decorated it. We put up a brand new 22-foot Christmas tree in the center of the park, wrapped all the lampposts with lighted garland. It was just a very beautiful, picturesque scene.
Oh, that's
So
great.
we planned a Christmas concert. We partnered with the high school and the intermediate school, and we had the show and jazz choir come out from the high school and the select choir from the intermediate school. We had Ellen Oaks Kerr, who is a local musician. She opened the show and played a bunch of Christmas music.
Yeah.
But we had between I think at its peak we had between 300 and 400 people
Wow.
show up for the event, and Mother Nature cooperated.
Good.
It was probably right around 40 degrees and no precipitation. So
That's
just a
great.
beautiful, beautiful event, and really nice thing for the city of Hornell.
Is that going to be an annual tradition, you think?
It is.
It is. Okay.
Yeah,
That's great.
so when we planned it, we dubbed this as the first annual.
Oh, okay.
So we already put that expectation out there, and partnered with the local music shop, Lions Will, located right here on Main Street in Hornell. They provided all the sound equipment
Oh, cool.
and did all that. It was just a great, great time.
A great community event. And I didn't mean to start the interview off on parks, but since we were talking about the new park, you also have additions to other parks, and you guys are getting into this new trend, this pickleball.
Yeah, well, pickleball, as you know, is taking off. It's
Taking the
wildly
world.
popular. I think the quarterback Tom Brady, he kind of champions it and is big into it. But we have a big project going on down at our Veterans Memorial Park at James Street, and part of that is to add pickleball courts. But our tennis courts have needed replacement for a long time, so that's part of the project. We'll replace a tennis court. So right now we have 4 tennis courts.
Wow.
So we'll tear those out, demo those, replace 3 of the courts, and then the 4th court will convert into dual pickleball courts. So we'll have 3 tennis courts and 2 pickleball courts. In addition to that, we're going to replace the basketball courts. We have the city pool that's down there. We have a baby pool that really isn't used a whole lot. So we're going to tear the baby pool out and put a splash pad over where the baby pool currently resides, adjacent to the full-size pool. And we also have upgrades coming to the locker room, the pool house. So new lockers, new bathrooms, and some much-needed upgrades there. And in addition to that, we're adding some playground equipment. So one of the important things to me is quality of life here in the city and offering recreation. Our parks are used by just thousands and thousands of people, not just in our community, but neighboring communities come and enjoy our parks as well. So it's very important just to keep investing in those.
Yeah. And that leads into what we've been talking about quite a few times on this program, which was the article at Newsbreak, putting you guys at affordable, a great place to live. That had to feel good, but you also see kind of the work you've been doing come to a head in that article.
It's really nice when you see these articles, and Hornell's been ranked high on some of these lists in the past.
Sure.
I think the past couple of years we were ranked, high in the affordability category. I think a few years ago we were ranked the 2nd fastest growing city in the entire state. So whenever you see these lists, it's always a nice feather in the cap and a reminder of how good we have it here. Speaking of affordability, we have some of the lowest costs when it comes to garbage pickup, water, certainly the investment in public safety, and as I like to say, for your city, what you pay in property taxes here in Hornell, you get one heck of a bang for your buck.
Yeah.
You really.
And that kind of leads into what you said at your state of the city, which is that it is affordable. There is the growth there. So it's almost as if they quoted you but what I want to mention on this is that you went through some, I guess, key issues for 2024, one being construction. So why don't we start there, and then we'll go through some of the other issues that you brought up in your state of the city. How does the construction projects look for the year 2024? Is that your goal, is construction this year?
Yeah, so this year will be the year of construction in the city of Hornell. As you recall, we were awarded the DRI, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, through the state of New York several years ago. And, due to COVID, a lot of those projects were, kind of put on ice, put on the shelf for a little while. But now, you're starting to see progress.
Right.
And the largest one for the city itself will be this year, and that'll be sidewalk replacements along Main Street, basically from Route 36 all the way down to Center Street where the movie theater is, including Broadway Mall. So we'll have sidewalk replacement going on. Also, in addition to that, we have an alleyway program, alleyway enhancement, a public art component, a wayfinding component that goes along with that. And all four of those really tie in together. So, so it'll be a lot of construction downtown. Obviously, that's going to be an inconvenience, right? Whenever you rip up your sidewalks and replace those, people will be inconvenienced.
Sure.
Business owners will be inconvenienced. We're planning on having a couple public engagement meetings coming up.
Oh, good.
Probably end of February or sometime in March, before construction season gets underway. We want to invite the public in, but not just the public, but the property owners and the business owners themselves, so they know what to expect and they know, what timelines to expect as far as construction in front of their businesses. But, when you look at it, Frank, how many opportunities do you really get over the years to replace all your sidewalks downtown?
Right.
Get rid of those trip hazards, get rid of all the unevenness, the cracking, the pitching and heaving that we see up here in upstate New York,
of course,
because of the weather. So it's really once in a generation opportunity to do so, and very excited. Will it be a pain in the rear?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely, but at the end of it, we'll have everything brand new downtown, which will hopefully set the stage for more economic development and growth, and make the downtown more walkable, make it more appealing for new businesses and entrepreneurs that want to come here and invest.
And you had mentioned the money involved in this and the grants and stuff. I was really impressed to learn, and I have I want to give full credit here. Brian O'Neill, I received your State of the City through LEA, who does a great job, dogged reporter, Brian O'Neill. But he had mentioned that you said in your speech, and I'm shocked by this, that as your time as mayor, nearly $20 million has been awarded the city of Hornell. That has got to be a lot of work and a lot of man hours behind that.
It is, and one of the goals of my administration, right out of the gate, is to be very aggressive in pursuing grant monies. A lot of the projects that we're talking about today, and in some of the others, whether it's investing in the sewer plants or doing things of that nature. Local communities, towns, cities, villages, you can't afford to do these multi-million dollar projects on your own. You don't have that in the coffers, so you're very reliant on state and federal assistance for these things. But in order to do that, you have to be aggressive, because most of these grants that we're talking about, most of these funding streams are highly competitive. So we're very blessed and fortunate to have Heather Reynolds, city planner. She's our chief grant writer, as I like to call her, the rainmaker, and she makes it happen. Whether it's a DRI or different parks projects, she's typically the one that's writing the grants. Also, we partner with Labella Associates, and they write grants on on some of the water and sewer projects. But all in, collectively, we are very aggressive, and it's really shown over the last 6 years. That pursuit of those grant monies and bringing those monies home to bear to make these projects a reality.
And you would say overall, what does the financial outlook of Hornell look like today?
We're in a very strong position. Over the last several years, we've added to our fund balance. When I became mayor, our fund balance wasn't strong at all. We were not in a strong position, and through the work of the city chamberlain, Michelle Smith, the finance committee of the Common Council, and myself and department heads, we really had to do some belt tightening and look at things, and change things. And we have. It took a couple of years. It's that old adage: you don't turn an aircraft carrier around in a bathtub, right?
Right.
It takes a little time. Took a couple of years. We've done it. We've got the city on the right trajectory and strengthened our fund balance along the way while maintaining, low taxes and keeping affordability where it is. And I think the report that you just mentioned really bears that out. And all signs are pointing upwards.
That's
here
great.
In Maple City, and we're doing very well.
Not everybody can say that. Do you mind staying through a break? I got to take a quick break.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. Our guest this morning, we have Hornell Mayor John Buckley. John, thanks again for giving us so much time this morning. But you had mentioned public engagement meetings when it comes to the construction projects that you have. But I've been really impressed to hear about your goal of transparency. And we've had so many people on this program that with councils, mayors, saying, how do we get people engaged? How can we be better transparent? How are you handling it in Hornell?
Yeah, it's a difficult issue the year. Let's go back in time, Frank. I served 8 years on the city council before I ran for mayor, and during the majority of those years, and even the first year or two, as I became mayor, we had media attend our meetings. Every common council meeting, the newspaper, radio, they were there covering it. Certainly the Board of Public Safety meetings, Board of Public Works meetings, they were there. Even certain committee meetings, the media was there. Finance Committee, Law and Ordinance Committee would meet. The media was there. Now it's the complete opposite. It's very seldom that the media attends any meetings whatsoever. So what are we doing about it? When I became mayor, the city did not have a Facebook page. We had no social media presence at all. So we created a Facebook page. Now we cover our own meetings in a sense.
Right.
We try to take information that comes from these meetings and put that out on our Facebook page to try to pump out information just to keep residents informed. And we also do that with other things too. There's a snowstorm. We need cars off the streets. There's a water break. We just had one this morning. The water break over on Sawyer Street. So we get that out on our Facebook page. It gets shared, exponentially. You get that information out. But also, in addition to that, we in last year's State of the City address, I announced an initiative to create a city newsletter. So now we have a newsletter that goes out throughout the year, and it has different information, different pieces from each department. So whether it's police, fire, codes, DPW, water, the Chamberlain's office, my office, everyone has a section of the newsletter, and we give updates, pump out information that way. And with social media, not everyone's on social media. Just like the newspaper, just like the radio. Some people listen to the radio, they don't get the newspaper, and vice versa. The beauty of the newsletter is it goes out to every mailbox.
Oh wow!
So everyone gets that information, and it's been a hit. So as you're on the board yourself.
Yeah.
Not everyone comes to meetings. You meet once a month, and if you get one or two people on a good day,
you almost get nervous when you see one or two people going, "Oh no, what do they know that I don't know?"
Yeah, are they upset about something?
Yeah.
Were they bored? Did they take a wrong turn? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, it's nice to have people come in and just be engaged and get informed. But the reality is, people are busy, and they're busy with their lives, their jobs, their kids, just whatever
life.
Whatever's going on in your life, right? So our job is to try to get that information out, and how do we do it? We do it in multiple ways, by use of social media, certainly the city newsletter, and increased press releases. We try to pump out as much to the media as we can, in hopes that they'll pick it up and run it.
You've done a great job, and that's the big problem, and that's throughout the whole probably country, but media isn't what it used to be. That's why I think there's an opportunity with this show to spread the word. There are opportunities, but the days of them coming to you, this, long gone. It's you got to go to them. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of the business.
You have to keep them engaged. When you're sitting there in a meeting, and I'll use the January meeting. We just had a meeting. I delivered the State of the City address. No media whatsoever.
Wow.
None.
Wow.
So if you weren't in attendance, you wouldn't have known that. So what we do is we take the State of the City, we send it out to the different media organizations. We kind of take some of the highlights, and we put it up on our Facebook page, and we try to get it out that way. But it's a shame, right?
It is.
The governor or the president, they have all the media, they have all that apparatus, so the word gets out. But if you're a mayor, a town supervisor, or what have you, have it's more difficult to get that out. So, you do what you can to try to, get the word out. And, we've had some pretty good success. But I think the newsletter has been, probably the biggest, tool in our
I would think so.
that information out.
It's a great idea because there's no excuse now that I don't use Facebook or whatever. There's no excuse. People have to. Yeah, you have it right there. So you had mentioned the State of the City address and the council was there. We were talking about you with Joe Sempolinski, but also just in general, it was a big year for Republicans in Hornell.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
When I first started on the city council, I was elected in 2009 originally. I was on an 8-2 council, and that is 8 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And over the years, the Republicans have kind of chipped away, and we were 5-5 for some time, and then the Republicans kind of took the majority, and then this year, the last 2 cycles they swept every race, and now we're 9-1.
That's amazing.
Tremendous success on the Republican side. But more importantly, we have good people, right? Yeah. We have good people, and I'll be honest, it's not a partisan thing. We've had really solid Democrats on the council over the years, and the thing we've been very fortunate here with, and not everyone can say this, is we've had good Republicans and Democrats who they might have their different beliefs,
of course,
on the state or national level. But we've been fortunate in the sense that they haven't brought those politics to the local level, because what we do here locally is we're trying to invest in our parks, we're trying to invest in our infrastructure, maintain and raise the quality of life, and do those sorts of things. We're not building border walls, we're not debating abortion, we're not debating whether we should fund Ukraine or Israel or any of that stuff, right? We're talking about water, we're talking about sewer, we're talking about police, fire, codes. Paving the roads, let's do something in the parks and make those better and more appealing, and those are the things that we're focused on. So I think even more so than Republican versus Democrat, I think we've done a nice job having good community-minded people on the council.
And that's great. And that's what's really about at the end of the day, because I can't tell you how many times I've had to take petitions out, and you know how it is. They'll start talking to you about, well, who you vote for president? And I said that has nothing to do with this. But at the end of the day, the people on the council are the ones that affect your day-to-day life more than anyone.
That is absolutely true, and my question is, do you want to be a politician or do you want to be a public servant?
Exactly.
If you want to be a public servant, then come on down and sign up, and we'll work together.
Exactly. And just before we go, because I know I'm keeping you long, but I was glad that you brought up bail reform and those type of things in your State of the City, because it has become such an issue throughout all of New York, and it's the fact that it's hitting more rural areas goes to show you how bad this policy is. So you guys have done a great job with public safety, though, overall.
Yeah, we're very blessed and fortunate to have the police department that we do, and we're very, very supportive of our police department.
Yes.
Whether it's personnel, equipment, and to my knowledge, the city of Hornell has the only law enforcement agency in the entire county that's fully staffed. And,
good for you guys. Wow.
And again, we're very, very fortunate and blessed. As a matter of fact, we just hired 3 police officers this past year. We took them, in the past, we'd wait until they came out of the academy. We'd wait until they graduated the academy, but it's so competitive now. and honestly, Frank, there's not a lot of people going into law enforcement.
No.
With the bail reform, with the discovery reform, and just the anti-police, defund the police movement, and it's come down from the top levels of the state and federal government.
Exactly.
If you're a mom or dad and your son or daughter is considering going into law enforcement, you might be trying to dissuade them and point them in another direction.
Exactly.
Right? So the pool has contracted, which makes it even more competitive, because you still need those people, you still need those bodies to populate all those positions as people move off or retire. But we've been very blessed. We've been very aggressive in trying to attract people and keep the ones that we have. So we're very fortunate. But you're right. Bail reform has been disastrous on so many different levels. I'll just use domestic disputes. There's plenty of domestic disputes where the police would show up, they'd put the person in jail overnight, cool off, sober up, and but now that they're right back on the street. They might write them a ticket, whether they show up or not in court. Who knows? Even if they don't show up, there's really no consequences. So in a way, bail reform has really took the handcuffs off the criminals, put them on the police, and not only that, but it emboldens the criminals.
It does.
Because they know it, and they know there's no consequences, and they'll be back out on the streets, within hours, doing what they were doing originally.
And I think what's so heartbreaking too is how many victims are now out there that should not have been victims because of this. You think of the person that person should have been in jail and not breaking into my house, or this person should have been in jail and not going back and being involved in another domestic disturbance. But we could talk about that for hours, and I don't want to do that because I don't want to end on a sour note here. But things are going really well. So what are you looking forward to the most in 2024 for Hornell?
Just continued investment. We've got a lot of, like I said, we've got a lot of construction projects, so we've got to manage our way through those. We'll still be pursuing grants, and there's always more, right?
Of course.
So the work is never done. You replace something that's gotten old or decrepit, but there's something else, right? There's something else that's getting, whether it's vehicles, whether it's equipment, it just keeps going. It's kind of like owning a house.
Right.
Put a roof on. Well, now I need new windows.
Exactly.
So there's always something.
It never ends.
But the key is not only seeing what's in front of you, Frank, but seeing what's down the road and what's over the horizon, and just preparing yourself to take those on, and being in a position financially where you can take those projects on and make those things happen. So we continue to move the ball and move Hornell forward. That's
great. Mr. Mayor, thanks for giving us so much time. Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely, Frank. Thanks for having me, and have a great day.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Our roof cam overlooking beautiful Market Street, where we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. This is Frankly Speaking on Big Fox. Thank you for this comment from a viewer. Wow, John, meaning Hornell Mayor John Buckley, is another breath of fresh air. Great interview. Yes, he does do a great job. And, I didn't necessarily get into this with him, but if you would have thought, I don't know what, 10, 12, well, let's go 15 years ago. If I would have said to you that in Hornell it would be a 9-1 Republican majority, I think people would have laughed. I mean, it was overwhelmingly Democrat. I mean, it seemed like a stronghold for Democrats. It's amazing what John Buckley and others have done to turn that city into Republican territory. I also received this from a viewer, a Fox News article, and I think this is in reference to the Cannabis Board meeting in New York that was canceled last minute. That was where they were going to make the decision that you could have 5 pounds of marijuana in your home for recreational use if you grew it. Out of California, I saw this actually yesterday. California woman who got high and stabbed boyfriend 108 times will not go to prison. Some are calling it basically a get out of jail free card. A California woman who fell into a pot-fueled psychosis after getting high on drugs and stabbed her boyfriend 108 times before slicing her own neck as police tried to stop her will not serve any prison time. A judge has ruled. Well, yeah, shocking story. Thank you for sending that along, though. I always appreciate it. Keep those comments coming in. I forgot to add a wave. I was so into the interview. Did you see what Van Jones had to say about Biden's candidacy? Basically, stay in the basement, Joe. That's the opinion of one former Obama administration official. If I were Biden, this is Van Jones, Obama alumni. If I were Biden, I would stay hidden. And I'll tell you why. He doesn't inspire confidence, and he's not a great messenger for himself. And there's been a lot of criticism there from his own staff saying when he sells Bidenomics and sells himself, he, in their words, fails. So they want him to just go after Trump. And you're starting to see that shift because now he is focused not on, who's it going to be. He is, Biden said himself, it is now going to be Trump, is what it looks like. And that's where the campaign begins. Jones, a former special advisor for green jobs in the Obama White House, added that there's something wrong with his campaign, where we're somehow expecting Joe Biden, and frankly, he did during the last campaign, to start to come out now and be Flash Gordon and save this, his own campaign. That's a weird sentence. The people who are benefiting from the Biden economy, and they exist, should be empowered to speak, he continued. I think Biden, Kate Bedingfield objected. She's former White House communications director. She said, I think Biden ran a very disciplined campaign. I think the sort of, he hid in his basement. Well, remember, we were in the midst of a global pandemic. We were in the midst of a once-in-a-generation crisis. And frankly, the way Joe Biden handled it was reassuring to people and was a big part of the reason that he was elected president in 2020. Now, we know that David Axelrod, who's also been a frequent critic, which has actually fueled some speculation that maybe, Biden would be replaced, said, I think Joe Biden has done some really extraordinary things and that history will shine on those. But his performance is a problem, and that is reflected in the polls. And what it translates to is an image of weakness. When you talk about the issues that people are showing in polls, foreign and domestic policy, and now you have immigration being the number one voter concern. And let's face it, Biden does not poll well when it comes to immigration. There's a sense that the world is out of control, said Axelrod. Not really a sense, but okay. And he's not in command. And that is what Trump is going straight at. And that is what they have to defeat in this campaign. And they need a counter narrative. And it isn't, I'm a great president, he was a lousy president. Yeah, but that seems to be how they're running, to Axelrod's point. And I would also add this perception of shakiness. There was actually, right there it is, from Yahoo News and Leon Brunet. He wrote a piece. This is surprising this would come out in a mainstream media outlet. Biden wobbles under the weight of multiple open fronts around the world. So to Axelrod's point, that perception in his mind of weakness is there. And he's suggesting, and I don't know if Biden's campaign is listening, that you can't just come out and say, I've been a great president and he was a lousy president, meaning Trump. It's not working. In the previous hour, Jones had warned that Republicans are, quote, not afraid of Joe Biden. They're not afraid. They don't think that by putting up somebody this damaged, frankly, this deranged, with this many deficits is going to hurt them at all, because the polls show over and over again that even with 978 felonies, he's still neck and neck with Biden. And of course, that's referencing Trump. There are some worrying signs for Trump. There has to be some worrying signs for Democrats. Well, there you go. That's Van Jones, and sprinkle in with a little David Axelrod. Now, Biden did win the UAW endorsement, which is surprising in a way because, well, not when you think of the history of unions and union endorsements, of course, but with the concern amongst the auto workers of the electric vehicle mandates. I think many, this may come as a surprise, I shouldn't say surprise, maybe a disappointment to some people, thinking that they were going to be upset enough to maybe sit this one out. That was not the case. And even the article here admits at one point that that doesn't mean that the workers will follow suit, as we saw back in 2016. We're going to talk about Nikki Haley in just a little bit, and then a couple things here on Trump. I know the show went very quick, and I wanted to talk to Buckley. We hadn't talked to him, Mayor Buckley, in quite some time, so I wanted to get caught up there. And I appreciate him giving us so much time, and I appreciate all the nice comments about the interview. Keep those comments coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Thank you again for joining us here on Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. So Nikki Haley, the question has been, will she be able to get those mega bucks in to keep the campaign going? Because they have spent a lot of money, the Haley campaign and PACs supporting her. So will that money be there? Well, she is holding a dozen fundraisers before the South Carolina primary. So that'd be a dozen in less than a month. Despite a punishing loss in New Hampshire, Haley has nearly a dozen fundraisers scheduled between now and South Carolina's primary, and insiders are now wondering how many of those shindigs, as they put here, will actually happen. That's a great point. Will they start to trickle off the calendar as the supporters aren't there? I mean, there's a lot of people, including mega donor Andy Sabin, saying that, it's over. We can't keep throwing good money after bad. So billionaire Andy Sabin urged Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley to walk away. He said, quote, you have to know when to hold them. You've got to know when to fold them. Quoting a little Kenny Rogers there, of course. You got to know when to walk away, and it's time for Nikki Haley to walk away. There's absolutely no upside to her going to South Carolina. And that's the point I made on the program yesterday. There's a lot of downside there for potential future perspectives for her. Meaning that if she goes to her home state And according to the polls, if she does what the polls are saying, which I don't believe polls, but if even somewhere near that, she's going to get defeated easily by the former president in her own state. That does not bode well for her future plans. But I'll continue with what Mr. Sabin had to say. And there's a tremendous downside. Yes, there is. Again, if you weren't aware, they have Hallie down by 30 points in South Carolina. If you can't win your own state, there's no reason to go on, he added. It would be, and I quote, political suicide. Yeah, I mean, any kind of future plans. I didn't put it quite in those terms, but yes, any future plans that she may have would be out the window. But now you can see what her game plan is. And again, going back to that point, will she have all the fundraisers she originally scheduled, 12, or will people start dropping out because they, essentially throwing that money at a candidate they see doesn't have the window there to get through. Now, you could argue that maybe she's just trying to ride it out and something happens with Trump, Supreme Court decides against him with the ballots or whatever the case, and then she's the last person standing, so she can pretty much walk right in, and maybe, but that still takes a lot of money. So her tactic is now to maybe goad Trump into a debate or to say more outrageous things. She pressed Trump to debate. Bring it, Donald. Show me what you got. Trying to play to his ego, trying to play to, temper's not the right word, but he doesn't like the give and take, right? We've seen that. And of course, now she's going after his mental competency, which I've got to say, I'm not a big fan of that because I think she is, if the smoke clears and she does step away, some could say she's done some damage there for the Republican Party, for someone that she worked for. Also, I think it's very disingenuous to see people in the media covering this, like we had that CNN piece saying, yes, it is a red flag, when we're not seeing anything near the level of Joe Biden. And of course, Joe Biden was not scrutinized by the media in this way. It really was despite the media that people learned about it and started seeing it. And so, this is Nikki Haley, and so he got upset and said that he would take a mental competency test, and challenged me to one that he would beat me. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. But when I said, well, okay, if that's the case, then get on the debate stage and let's go. Bring it, Donald. Show me what you got. So trying to goad him into that. I'll tell you kind of how Trump is responding in one way. He's responding in many ways, but I'll give you an update on that when we come back. Stay with us. This is our last break, and then we got to wrap things up. We'll be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So Trump is warning Haley donors that at this point they will be permanently barred from the MAGA camp. He went to Truth Social saying, when I ran for office and won, I noticed that the losing candidate's donors would immediately come to me and want to help out. This is standard in politics, but no longer with me, Trump said. This is an interesting take. He said, anybody that makes a, quote, contribution to Bird Brain, that's his nickname if you're not familiar yet, from this moment forth, will be permanently barred from the MAGA camp. We don't want them, and we will not accept them because we put America first and always will. Okay. That's how Trump has responded. There's a really, oh man, we are almost out of time. The Fox News staff put this together. Remember how I talked about, if you were watching early on in this program, that I believe the media is going to not give the former president a platform. That's the term they use, a platform, meaning that they don't have to cover his rallies, they don't have to cover his speeches because they don't want to normalize this behavior, normalize his lies. We've heard him say that over and over again. It's a way to essentially censor the nominee. Well, MSNBC and CNN both cut off former President Trump's victory speech in New Hampshire with fact checkers and commentary, similar to their coverage in Iowa. On Outnumbered, former Michigan gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon argued the strategy is feeding right into Trump's power. And I think this is a good point. I personally sort of love this approach because I see them doing this. And I think anytime you ban someone from seeing something, they want to see it more. They get more excited, and Trump has a unique political movement that is more old school, where people are passing pamphlets and talking. So that makes them even more likely to say to their neighbor, hey, have you seen what they're doing to him? There's something up with this. Why do you want to hide him from us? And so I think it gives him power. I think they're feeding right into him, and they don't realize it. It makes me sort of sit back and chuckle at how silly they are. Yeah, I think we'll see more of this. We'll start to ban. And I was actually talking with someone yesterday on the street about what a debate will look like between Biden and Trump. My theory has been right along that Biden will not debate Trump for some obvious reasons, but also they'll have the excuse that the liberal media and mainstream media and others use, which is we don't want to give him the platform, we don't want to give him a chance to just tell these lies, which a lot of times lie is defined by something that someone disagrees with. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it is. It's just that is the excuse that they'll use. So I do not believe there'll be a debate. I believe the idea will be we just can't give him that opportunity. We're trying to save democracy here. That'll be Biden's argument. But time will tell. I don't make predictions that often, but time will tell. Trump does have a favorability edge with some key voting groups in swing districts, according to a new single survey. Trump scored 43 approval rating among suburbanites and a 40% approval rating among independents in 39 battleground House districts. Boy, did we cover a lot. By the way, an interesting piece of the New York Post this morning. Average Americans are paying for illegal migrants to come here, not just after they land. And that is in reference to the United Nations, which we pay a lot of money into, giving money to migrants crossing the border. We are out of time. You'll have to read that for yourself. We are completely out of time. Thank you to Hornell Mayor John Buckley for being on the program. Please join us tomorrow morning starting at 7 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we'll see you then. Have a great day.